Hi guys, today we are going to discuss about the cerebrum in a easiest and a simplest way. So before getting into the topic about the university exams, the external features is not yet asked as a separate 10 mark, but the internal features is the important 10 mark and the supralateral surface is a frequently asked short note. But this topic is also very useful for your practical examination. So what we are going to study today are the introduction, external features, the functional areas and the applied anatomy. So, about the introduction of the cerebrum, it is the largest portion of the brain. We all know that it is the largest part of the brain and it is located above the floor of the anterior and the middle cranial fossa. So, this is the anterior cranial fossa and this is the middle cranial fossa. So, it is located above the floor of the anterior and the middle cranial fossa. And it is an heavy, convoluted, and is also a bilobed structure. It has two hemispheres, left and the right. So, it is a bilobed structure and it is responsible for the higher functions. So now the cerebral hemisphere. When the two cerebral hemispheres are viewed together from above, we assume the shape of a ovoid mass. So here you can see a deep median cleft called as the longitudinal cerebral fissure will divide the two cerebral hemispheres into left and right. And here you can see that the longitudinal cerebral fissure is incomplete and it extends downwards till the corpus callosum. This is the corpus callosum. You can see that the fissure is incomplete. The longitudinal cerebral fissure is incomplete. It extends only till the corpus callosum. So, what do you mean by corpus callosum? Is that it is a large mass of white fibers that join the two cerebral hemispheres. And about the layers of the cerebral hemisphere consists of outer gray matter called as a cerebral cortex and inner white matter, and a large mass of the gray matter that is present embedded in the basal part of the white matter is called as a basal ganglia. So basal ganglia is nothing but the gray matter which is present in the basal part. Gray matter in the basal part is called as basal ganglia, and a cavity within the two hemisphere is called as the lateral ventricles. And we are also going to see about the sulci and gyri. Now let's see about the external features, the poles, surfaces, borders, sulci and gyri. About the poles, the cerebral hemisphere has three poles: frontal pole, this is the frontal pole, occipital pole, and the temporal pole. So, the frontal pole occupies the anterior part of the cerebral hemisphere, and the occipital pole occupies the posterior part of the cerebral hemisphere, and the temporal pole occupies between the orbital surface and the tentorial surface. So, to summarize, the frontal pole is in the anterior part, and the occipital in the posterior, and the temporal between the orbital and the tentorial surfaces. Surfaces of the cerebral hemisphere, it has three surfaces: supralateral surface, medial surface, and inferior surface. So when you see laterally, you can see the supralateral surface, and when you cut the cerebral hemispheres, you can see the medial surface, and when you look from the base, you can see the inferior surface. So the supralateral surface is more convex and extended. It has more sulci and gyri, which you will learn later in this video. And about the medial surface is flat and vertical, and you can see a C-shaped cut seen here. So this is nothing but the corpus callosum. And about the inferior surface, so the inferior surface is irregular. So it is divided into a smaller orbital surface and a larger tentorial surface by a deep horizontal groove. So this is a deep horizontal groove that divides the orbital surface and the tentorial surfaces. And to summarize, so the supralateral surface is convex and extended, medial surface is flat and vertical, and inferior surface is irregular. And about the borders, the cerebral hemisphere has six borders: supromedial, superciliary, infralateral, medial orbital, medial occipital, and infromedial. So the supromedial border. So this is the supromedial border, and it separates the. So this is the supralateral surface, and this is the medial surface. So it lies between the medial and the supralateral surface. And about the inferior, so this is the inferior aspect of the cerebral hemisphere. So you can see here the superciliary border. So this is the superciliary border, and the superciliary border is at the junction of the orbital surface and the supralateral surface, and the infralateral border is at the junction of the tentorial surface and the supralateral surface. So it separates the supralateral and the tentorial surfaces. And the medial orbital border that separates the medial and the orbital surfaces, and also the medial occipital separates the medial and the tentorial surfaces. So now about the hippocampal or the infromedial border. So it surrounds the cerebellar peduncles. So cerebellar peduncles are nothing but they are the large bundle of nerve fibers that connects the cerebral hemisphere and the spinal cord. So about the sulci and gyri of the cerebral hemisphere. So the cerebral cortex is an highly extensive structure. So to accommodate it in a limited space, we have sulci and gyri. Approximately two-thirds of the total surface area is hidden in the walls of the sulci. So sulci are nothing but the fissures which vary from a slight groove to a deep fissure, and the gyri or the convolutions consist of a central core of white matter surrounded by the gray matter. So the sulci and gyri will vary from individual to individual. So we are discussing about the main sulci and gyri here. So about the lateral sulci of Sylvius. So we are going to see about the four sulci: lateral sulci of Sylvius, central sulci of Rolando, calcarine sulcus, and parieto-occipital sulcus. About the lateral sulcus, sulci of Sylvius, it is one of the clearly visible cerebral sulci and has a stem and three rami. So the stem of the sulcus will begin in a deep cleft in the inferior surface. Here in the superior surface, you can see the stem of the lateral sulcus. And on reaching the supralateral surfaces, it is divided into three rami. So the Sylvian point is a point where the three rami will diverge from each other. So this is the Sylvian point. And the three rami are the anterior rami, ascending rami, and the posterior rami of the lateral sulcus. So about the central sulcus. So central sulcus, this is central sulcus. Central sulcus begins by cutting the supromedial border. So here is a supromedial border. It cuts the supromedial border of the hemisphere about 1 centimeter behind the midpoint of the frontal and the occipital pole. Here is a frontal pole and this is the occipital pole. So midpoint is here. Okay. So then it forms a boundary between the motor area of the cerebral hemisphere in the front and the sensory areas behind. So about the calcarine sulcus. So the calcarine sulcus is so this is a calcarine sulcus. It is present in the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere, and it begins at the posterior end of the corpus callosum. So this is a corpus callosum, and it starts in the posterior end, and it is slightly an arched structure, and it ends in the occipital pole slightly on the supralateral surfaces. So you can see the calcarine sulcus both a medial and slightly on the supralateral surfaces also. And about the parieto-occipital sulcus, it is also present in the medial surface, and it begins at the midpoint. So this is a calcarine sulcus, begins at the midpoint of the calcarine sulcus and cuts the supromedial border at 5 centimeter in front of the occipital pole. So this is the occipital pole, and it is 5 centimeter in front of the occipital pole and may extend slightly into the supralateral surfaces. So about the lobes of the cerebral hemisphere, it has 4 lobes: frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. In order to divide the cerebral hemisphere into 4 lobes, we consider 3 sulci and 2 imaginary lines. So the central sulcus, we consider the central sulcus and the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus and also the parieto-occipital sulcus and two imaginary lines. So the first imaginary line starts from the parieto-occipital sulcus and extends till the pre-occipital notch, and the second imaginary line starts it is a second imaginary line is an extension of the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus and ends and meets the first imaginary line. So frontal lobe is bounded by, so this is a frontal lobe, you can see here this is a frontal lobe and it is bounded behind by the central sulcus and below by the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus. And the parietal lobe is bounded by the central sulcus in front, below by the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus and behind by the upper part of the first imaginary line. This is the temporal lobe. So the temporal lobe is bounded above by the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus and is also in front of the lower part of the first imaginary line. And the occipital pole is behind the line joining the parieto-occipital sulcus and the pre-occipital notch. So this is the occipital pole. So now we are going to study about the insula. Insula is also called as the island of Riehl or the central lobe. So insula is considered separate from the four main lobes of the cerebral hemisphere. It has submerged from the surface during development due to the overgrowth of surrounding cortical areas. It is a triangle in shape. Here you can see this is the insula. So it is triangle in shape. So this is the apex. So this is the apex and it is surrounded by a circular sulcus except at the apex where the Lyman insula is present. And the insula's anterior part contain a short gyre called as the gyre brevia. So this is the gyre brevia. Short gyres are called as gyre brevia, and the posterior part contains a longer gyres which is called as the gyre longa. And about the other sulci and gyri present on the supralateral surfaces. So first we consider the frontal lobe. So the precentral sulcus lies anterior and run parallel to the central sulcus. So this is the precentral sulcus. So it lies anterior and run parallel to the central sulcus, and the area between the precentral and the central sulcus is called as precentral gyri. And anterior to the precentral sulcus lies the superior frontal and the inferior frontal sulcus, which will divide the frontal lobe into superior, middle and inferior frontal gyri. So therefore and the inferior frontal gyri is also divided by the anterior and the ascending rami of the lateral sulcus into three gyres. A is called as the pars orbitalis and B is called as pars triangularis as it is triangle in shape, and C is called as pars opercularis. In the parietal lobe, the post-central sulcus will lie behind and parallel to the central sulcus, and the rest of the parietal lobe is divided by the intraparietal sulcus into superior parietal lobule and the inferior parietal lobule. And then in the temporal lobe, the superior and the inferior temporal sulci will run parallel to the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus and divide the temporal lobe into superior, middle and inferior temporal gyri. And in the occipital pole, you can see a lateral occipital sulcus which divides occipital pole into superior occipital and inferior occipital gyrus. And you can see a lunate sulcus which is a C-shaped sulcus in front of the occipital pole, and a transverse occipital sulcus which lies in the uppermost part of the occipital lobe. So now we are going to see about the sulci and gyri present on the medial surface. So the medial surface, the main feature of the medial surface is the corpus callosum. So the corpus callosum is, you can clearly see here, um, a C-shaped cut mass. So this is called as corpus callosum, and it is a C-shaped thick bundle of commissural fibers. It has three parts. The central part is called as the trunk. So this is the trunk, and the posterior part is thick and is called as a splenium, and the anterior angle is called as the genu. Anterior curved end is called as the genu. And we have already seen about the parieto-occipital sulcus and the calcarine sulcus. This is the parieto-occipital sulcus, and this is the calcarine sulcus. So between these two structures, we see the cuneus. And about the cingulate sulcus, cingulate sulcus will lie 1 centimeter. So this is a cingulate sulcus. So this lies 1 centimeter above the corpus callosum and ends at the, so here ends it like this. So therefore it ends in the supromedial border. And so the cingulate gyri is the area between the corpus callosum and the cingulate sulcus. And the callosal sulcus, it separates the cingulate gyrus from the corpus callosum. So this is the callosal sulcus. And so there is a short sulci from the, so this is the cingulate sulcus. So there is a short sulci which is present, which starts from the cingulate sulcus. So that divides the area into an paracentral lobule and a medial frontal gyrus. So this is the medial frontal gyrus and the paracentral lobule. This is not superior here, it is a medial frontal gyrus. And here it is important to note that the paracentral lobule is the higher center for micturition and defecation. And the area between the parieto-occipital sulcus and the paracentral lobule is called as precuneus. And the inferior surface, so the sulci are sulci present here. So generally the inferior surface is divided into the orbital part and the tentorial part, we know that. And the orbital part as a olfactory sulcus. So the olfactory sulcus is they run anteroposteriorly to the medial orbital border. So the area medial to this sulcus is called as a gyrus recti. So GR is known as gyrus recti. And the orbital sulcus is a H-shaped sulcus. So it divides the area into anterior, posterior, middle and lateral gyrus. And in the tentorial part, there are two major sulci which runs anteroposteriorly. So medially is the collateral sulcus and laterally is the occipitotemporal sulcus. So the gyri present here are the medial occipitotemporal gyri and the lateral occipitotemporal gyri. And so the calcarine sulcus, which we have seen in the medial surface, will end a little bit here in the inferiorly. So on the area between area between the collateral sulcus and the calcarine sulcus is called as the lingual gyrus. And the lingual gyrus will extend anteriorly as the parahippocampal gyrus. And about the, so now we have finished about the sulci and gyri. Now let's go into the cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is it is a surface layer of gray matter of the cerebral hemisphere and is responsible for three basic functions: perception, adaptation and movement. And the other activities like learning, memory, speech, intelligent and creative thinking are also dealt by the cerebral cortex. And it controls the contralateral half of the body. So that is, it controls the opposite half of the body. if the left hemisphere will control the right half of the body. And the cerebral cortex will vary phylogenetically, that is evolutionally. The oldest part is called as the archicortex, and the recently developed is called as the neocortex, and the intermediate part is called as paleocortex. And so the cerebral hemisphere consists of nerve cells, synapses, and neuroglia. And the types of neurons present in the cerebral cortex are five in number. That is the pyramidal cells, the stellate cells, the stellate cells, and the horizontal cells of Kajal, and the cells of Martinotte, and fusiform cells. So there are five different types of neurons present. And the pyramidal cells are pyramidal in nature, and the axons will, so this is the axons of pyramidal cells that will enter the white matter of the cerebrum, and they will vary in shape from 10 micrometers to 125 micrometers. And the larger pyramidal cells with 100 to 125 micrometers is called as the pyramidal cells of Betz. And about the stellate cells, so the stellate cells are smaller with star shaped bodies. They have a shorter axon and shorter dendrites, and it appear like a granule, so also called as granule cells. And about the the fusiform cells will be occupied in the deepest cortical layers, and the horizontal cells of Kajal will occupy the superficial layers, and the cells of Martinotte will be present throughout the layers of the cortex, and it contains a multipolar small cells. And the cortical neurons will establish connection with the other neurons in the following three ways: the projection neurons that transmit impulses to the subcortical area, and the association neurons that establish connection within the same hemisphere, and the commercial neurons that establish connection between the cortical neurons of the establish connection between the cortical neurons between the two cerebral hemispheres, so that it connects the two cerebral hemispheres. And about the neocortex, the neocortex consists of the 90 percentage of the cerebral cortex, others being the archi and the paleocortex. And the neocortex consists of six layers. So the plexiform or the molecular layer contains predominantly of the transverse fibers and some scattered horizontal cells of Kajal, and the external granular layer, which consists of a densely packed stellate cells, and the external pyramidal layer, which consists of small and medium sized pyramidal cells, and the inner granular layer, which consists of closely packed stellate cells, and it contains a band of white stria called as the Baylarger. Here it is shown as a green colored band, thick band, that is called as the outer band of Baylarger. And the inner pyramidal or the ganglionic layer consists of larger pyramidal cells of Betz and an inner band of Baylarger. And the multiform or the polymorphic layer consists of cells of multiple forms, that is of various size and shape, that will merge with the white matter. So therefore the plexiform layer is the outermost layer, and the multiform is the innermost layer. The functional areas of the brain were divided by the Brodmann into 47 areas. They are classified as motor, sensory, and association. The motor area is concerned with the motor function, and the sensory receives the afferent impulses, and the association provides association between the neurons for integrative and cognitive function, and they occupy about 75% of the cerebral cortex. So next we are going to see about the different functional areas in the different lobes of the brain. First we take into consider the frontal lobe. In the frontal lobe there is a primary motor area that is called as area number 4. This area number 4 is present in the precentral gyrus, and the premotor area, which is area number 6, is present in the frontal gyrus. And the primary motor area will receive the numerous inputs from the sensory cortex, and the premotor area is responsible for programming of these inputs and controlling the progress of movements. and the frontal eye field is the area number 8. So it is in the middle frontal gyrus and is responsible for the voluntary scanning movements of the eye, independent of the visual stimulus. And the motor speech area, there is area number 44 and 45. It is also called as a Broca's area, and it is present in the inferior frontal gyrus. So motor speech area will bring about the formation of words. And the functional areas in the parietal lobe are the primary sensory area, area number 312, so that is present in the post central gyrus. And the sensory association area, which is area number 5 and 7. And the sensory speech area, also called as Wernicke's area, is present in the area number 39 and 40. So this is responsible for the interpretation of the languages. And the functional areas in the temporal lobe are the primary auditory area 41 and 42, and the secondary auditory area. So the primary auditory area is 41 42, and the secondary auditory area for is area number 22. And then the functional areas in the occipital lobe are the primary visual area and the secondary visual area. The primary visual area is 17 and the secondary visual area is 18 and 19. And about the homunculus. So homunculus is nothing but it is a mapping of areas that control the different parts of the body. And for the motor areas, we start from the medial surface and go to the lateral surface. So from the medial surface, foot, leg, trunk, shoulder, hand, thumb, neck, and face and tongue. So therefore, here in the motor areas, the face, lips, tongue will occupy a greater part than that of the limbs on the extremities. So in the sensory area also, from the medial to the lateral, the genitalia, foot, leg, trunk, shoulders, hand, thumb, lips, face, jaw, and tongue and pharynx. So the face here also, the face, tongue, and lips are occupying a greater part. So here the mapping is only for the movements that is represented in these areas and not the muscle control. And so we are going to see about the applied anatomy. Hemiplegia means lesion in the primary motor area will cause hemiplegia. So this will cause flaccid paralysis of the opposite half of the body. That is, if the left hemisphere, that area number 4 is affected, the right side of the body is paralyzed. And the expressive aphasia is due to the lesion in the Broca's motor area 44 and 45. So this will cause a loss of ability to produce the speech. And the receptive aphasia means loss of the ability to understand the spoken and the written languages. So this is due to the lesion in the Wernicke's area, area number 39 and 40. So finally, a global aphasia means the lesion involving both Broca's and Wernicke's area. So that's all about cerebrum. Thank you.